Hi guys, and welcome back to episode 100 of the PT Education Podcast. We've just smashed down some croissants.
We have.
My daughter took a fantastic picture of us.
She did.
So we are here, we're excited. We're having to record in a different location, a different time. That is what it is. Not that anyone else really cares. They just want us to be consistent and hear our amazing voices every single week. But yeah, great to kind of compress and think about what we've learned over these episodes, which we're going to talk about today, which will be absolute value, 100%. But Mr. Green, how are we doing, mate?
I'm all right.
How's life treating you?
I'm all right, mate.
I'm all right.
It's one of them weeks, which is why we're in a different place at a different time today. Yeah, it's been a curveball week. With regards to stuff going on at the studios, which we found out on Tuesday. So some stuff to deal with this week. Unexpected to a point. Expect to go over a longer haul, but when it comes, it slightly was a bit of a curveball. And I know you're going to ask me this, so I'm just going to carry on. But before I do that, very happy to celebrate 100 episodes because it's exciting. I'm sure we'll talk about that again in a second. So yeah, we've got a curveball at the studio this week, and regardless of what the curveball is, actually it was how I was going to deal with it, especially being sort of a business leader and people within the business relying on you to sort of lead the way and keeping calm and coming up with practical solutions and trying to see the positives, which actually I felt I did pretty well actually.
Yeah. Yes.
From straight away, I felt I dealt with it well. If I reflect back on how this week and how this next few weeks are going to go, with how I've dealt with it this week, I'm actually pretty happy so far. I'm sort of reflecting already on conversations I've had and how I've reacted and how hopefully people have reacted around me and the studio, and I'm pretty happy with so far how I've dealt with it. I was actually saying to you, wasn't I, because you and I sat down and had some lunch quickly the other day, and it's actually really, it kicks you into because it's not normal, it kicks you into having to think and move and get things done, which maybe sometimes it's not level of complacency, but when your week's the same all the time, you just fall into place. Doesn't always take loads of thought, which is why courses and things are good, but it's made me have to think and reflect and think about how we're going to improve and how we're going to move forward and still lead the business and make sure that the trainers are all in a good place. And so yeah, mate, it's been a curveball, it's been a stress, but as I said to you, I think the term I used the other day was like I felt alive, and what I meant by that was I had things to do like all the time. I was going from meetings to meetings within the studio and outside of the studio. We had to move this, which I'm grateful that you had the time to move this as well. But I felt like I was getting things done. Yeah. So there's quite a lot that's just fallen out there, but hopefully it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think I want to draw away some sort of really good reflective points from that. Is in life, when you experience a change or a disruption or a curveball or stressor, sometimes it can just be a bit of a kick up the arse.
Yes.
Let's say someone's in a relationship, they've got home and the missus has gone, babe, I'm not happy. They're like, I've let this slide a little bit. I've taken my missus for granted. I need to step up the game a little bit. I'm not really putting the effort in.
Yeah.
Let's say someone's got a health issue and they go to the doctor and the doctor's like, doc, your bloods, they're not great.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's a bit of a kick up the arse. And for this, there's that business thing where in life we can all get a bit complacent just as things get the same. We need something to challenge ourselves, whether they're self-imposed, so we talk about like education and personal development to grow and develop, but also life will throw something at you guaranteed, whether you're in business, whether you're talking about relationships, your health, life in general. It will not go in one smooth line. They're guaranteed 100% to get stuff you just can't see coming, and we all need to like mentally kind of prepare ourselves for that in an open, realistic way, not to like stress about it. And then it's about how you react to it, and in this context, chatting to you this week, there's been that more buzz, more excitement, more having to think about problem solving, figuring stuff out. And I think it's actually been a really good thing for you.
I do as well, and business has been good. We took over the studio in 2018, and it's been, we've been really lucky. We took on a business that was already very well established and very well run, so fortunate in terms of that point of thing. Business partner and I had been there since the start, but it was very well set up and the reputation was good, and it's the first real curveball. And I'm taking that as a positive, which, as I said to you that day, I was talking to someone earlier and talking about the book that instantly came to my mind is The Obstacle is the Way. And actually, the resilience that you build from having to actually work on something on the fly and think on the fly and come through something is actually worth its weight in gold. And sometimes things are for the better. I think it'll be good potentially for all involved, actually.
Yeah.
On sort of both sides, I think it's actually a good thing. So it's but again, if this had been 3 or 4 years ago, before the work I've done with you, and obviously the discussions we have, and through the work that you've done, I might not, and the books I've read, I might not have dealt like that.
Exactly, maybe
it
not.
Could have gone the other way, and I could have initially completely shit myself.
Yeah.
It was straight, but because straight away I really, I sort of go into that mode. I tend to be someone who can try and see the positive and think about solutions rather than get all encompassed by the problem.
Yeah.
But the work I've definitely done with you and sort of some of my own work has definitely been a big part of that. And it makes you really think that how important that is to be able to deal with these situations. It's easy for some people just to sort of crumble or, like I say, become all consumed in the problem to the point where they can't see the solution or think, right, what are we going to do with this one?
Well, either get paralysed, or go into a total kind of reactive state, react but through like an emotion.
Yeah.
I think what you've done well this week is you've took a step back. We've had some chats. You've thought about stuff, and you're reacting logically, not just reacting.
Yeah.
So you're acting, thinking about it, planning it, not panicking, not getting sort of letting your emotions kind of run riot.
Yeah.
We'll do a podcast on emotional intelligence at some point.
Yes, we are. Yeah, absolutely.
And another side to this as well is being able, and this is going to go on today's podcast, is reflection from the lessons that you learn through curveball. There's always something to be taken when life throws something at you, and you're like, okay, that was out of my hands, but what can I learn? What could I kind of control, or what can I influence next time there might be a curveball? And 101 is actually your own personal development.
Yeah.
That's something we all have control over, our own responses, our own growth, and to go, look, if I do the work now on myself, I will respond even better next time something happens. And it's just a never-ending process. So those lessons are really key. And today we're going to share some lessons. And 100 podcasts is a lot.
It is a lot.
And over that time, people listen to this podcast. I don't always know what's going on in the background, do they? They just kind of listen to that and go, yes, all happy days. Dan and James just, chat a bit of shit each week. And yes, we do.
But you're right.
But actually, beneath the scenes, I've had lots of difficult and stresses going on. Now you've been really busy. And we've had to kind of learn a lot about ourselves, learn a lot about podcasting. And just, I really feel there's a lot of lessons that we've both gathered in these last 100 episodes. And we were talking about it. We thought, it'd make a very good podcast episode, because whether or not you want to be a podcaster or not, I feel like there's a lot of kind of like life and business lessons that will come out from today's conversation.
No, I completely agree. On the first thing, so I've learned, it's not really a lesson, but I've got used to my voice. That's the first one, actually, if I'm honest with you. Because we spoke about this a few weeks ago. When do we look or sound better? And we both agreed, both 10 out of 10 on both.
100%.
You look straight in the camera for that one as well.
On the full package.
But on a weird, I've got used to listening to myself now. I can listen back to myself. And I don't even think about my voice anymore, which is quite a weird one, because when you hear a lot of people think, especially if I ever heard myself on like a voicemail or something, it's never quite how you think it would sound. But that's not really a lesson, but that is something.
Well, I think you can take something away from that. First of all, is why do you listen to yourself? Why do you re-listen to your voice?
Well, I don't really re-listen to my voice.
Or as in re-listen to what you said.
But what I do re-listen to what I said, because there's lots of lessons. So this is a good place to start, right?
Yeah.
Which is why I asked the question.
See where we're going.
Understanding how you've explained things. Understanding maybe things you say too often, or where you repeat yourself. Taking lessons with regards to if I'm listening enough and if I'm talking enough through a podcast. Understand if I explained maybe something that I think I understand really well enough. So something, sometimes you have something in your head and you understand it, and so you communicate it thinking, I've got this nailed and I've communicated it well. But hearing yourself back, sometimes I just think, do you know what, if I didn't know what he was talking about, I'm not sure I would pick that up from what he was saying. And maybe my clarity, or maybe I don't understand the point as well as I think I do, so my ability to explain it in maybe a layman's terms, they're all really positive things for you to brush up on. So they're just a few of the things off the top of my head. I mean, there's loads of stuff we'll go through today, but certainly reflecting back on that, I think, is something that's really been good. What about yourself, mate?
Well, on that note, I think these are skills that will be great for everyone. So whether you're a coach or not, if you're trying to pass on information to other people, which a lot of people are in their jobs, to other human beings, assessing how you communicate that. And this might sound a bit kind of crazy for people who haven't thought about this, but actually recording yourself. Most people
Yeah.
think if they're on social media, like, of course I've got to get better on camera. Well, you probably have if you want to grow a brand and get a message out there. But for anyone in any job, most people have to communicate something, and it can be really good just recording your voice or filming yourself, saying it.
Yeah.
So practice saying it, writing it down, and then you get to reflect and go, you know what, I'm mumbling. I'm not really that clear.
Yeah.
I don't understand what I'm saying.
Exactly.
Let alone is anyone else going to say. And this is just a constant skill that needs to be refined over and over again. And it's been great to be able to listen to myself each week. And I agree with what you're saying there, and to improve how I communicate. And that's just a never-ending journey. And when you hear about people who are years and years and years ahead, like the Chris Williamson sort of stuff, and you hear about his journey and how much work he's done and reflective practice he's done to get better at how he communicates. So I suppose any skill you want to grow and develop in, you need to find a way to assess that skill.
Yeah.
So something we did in my psychology course, which is fantastic, was we would do a role play, but someone would watch us doing the role play. So we'd get constant feedback. So you get one person, either if it's just two of you, the person playing the client with feedback on how you've done as a counsellor, or a third person would be just watching the dynamic. I go to Toastmasters, and most weeks you get some sort of evaluation. But if you've done a speech, you get evaluation by at least one person, and maybe some speeches from a group of people. Great, then you get to constantly learn. If you're not getting evaluated and no one's giving you any feedback, it's really difficult to progress with any skill. I mean, footballers, they're constantly analysing their game all the time. Like these days with technology, they're sitting down straight after the game, they're analysing everything.
Man United players don't listen though.
Man United don't listen.
They don't listen.
Work for Man United. They
don't listen.
Maybe they don't analyse.
But yeah,
they do.
Right.
And any skill in life you want to get good at, and everyone's got something, you've got to find a way to assess that skill. And it can be quite uncomfortable to hear yourself or see yourself presenting or whatever, but if you don't open up to that discomfort, you're just closing your eyes and just hoping you're going to get better.
People don't like the idea. I mean, a lot of people don't
Feedback
ask for feedback.
from
A lot of people don't ask for feedback because they don't. It's like if you don't want the answer, don't ask the question. But why don't you want the answer? And a lot of the time, is people's ability to take critical good critical feedback, not just going in on someone. Like if you're gonna give feedback, then it's like if I have with trainers, or if we've asked for stuff maybe at the studios, it's like give us. We don't just want someone to blow smoke up your arse. You want it to be good critical feedback. So if you also ask for feedback, make sure there's things that people can take away and think I can really work on that. And be brutally honest with yourself. I mean, it's nice, haven't we? The podcast with Cal, we've had some really good feedback on that from quite a few people actually.
And thank you to everyone who's given us some feedback, because that's important for us to hear. Great for us to hear. It's quite motivational when someone does give you a compliment or feedback as well. But also the amount of people we have listening, that's feedback to us. It is. If our podcast listeners are going down and down, that's the feedback that we need to take on board.
It's absolutely.
And go, well, we like the sound of our voices.
They're wrong,
but you're all wrong. We're brilliant.
Well, I put that here. There's two things. So the first thing is, when I listen back, I quite enjoy our podcast.
Brilliant. It's the best part of my week.
I enjoy it.
I think it's brilliant.
And the other thing
Not biased at all.
we did speak about this the other day was, say, the podcast with Cat was more interview based, and we've had a couple of guests that are more interview based, and a couple more guests that are more conversation based. And I think we've both done quite well at being able to adapt to the guests that we've had on. I think we've both done that pretty well off the cuff, and obviously, especially with each other when we go on to a guest one, we know each other very well, so we're able to pick up on little cues that the other one's going to give or how the conversation is going to go. But I think independently within podcasts, we picked up, right, this is going to be a conversation one. This one needs more time. This is more of an interview. We haven't discussed it before, have we?
No.
We haven't discussed it. It's just a matter of we've just sort of let the guests sort of start to take the lead, and we'll react around them. And I think we've done that pretty well, actually.
And that links me to one of my reflection points is understanding your skills and weaknesses. We know what we're generally better at, and where we want to grow. So I think we have skills. We're like, right, let's leverage the skills that we've got. Things we're shit at, like we said 100 times, like tech. we crap at it, but neither of us are going to put hours and hours in learning tech. No, we're not. It's not going to happen. We don't enjoy it. No. We're not particularly good there. We're not interested in it.
Yeah.
We're happy for it to be a weakness. So we will try and delegate that as much as we can.
Yeah.
Everyone's got a set of strengths, and everyone's got a set of weaknesses. Things that they're better at than others. If you can be self-aware enough to know, you know what, I'm good at this stuff, and that's what I want to put my energy and effort into. Generally, if you're good at it and you enjoy it, and you're in line with your values and in line with where you want to go in life, you're onto an absolute winner.
Yeah.
And then you have plenty of weaknesses, and that's okay. And find people to support you, delegate, whatever. Just try to find a way where those weaknesses aren't holding you back.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's I think that's a really important thing, isn't it? Deciding, you've talked about this a lot before, deciding areas that you think I need to brush up on to move forward, and areas where actually the value's not there in you doing that. Your value set somewhere else, and how can you possibly, like you say, delegate? For us, it's always going to be tech, isn't it? It's always going to be that, and spend time. And there'll be a few, when we say we're rubbish at tech, there's stuff we do that we picked up on that we have to do because it's just there's no point delegating it.
Yeah.
So there is stuff we have learned how to do, and we sort of brushed our way along with that, haven't we? And we
100%.
get what we need to get done.
Yeah.
So it's not like we put like zero effort.
No, we have learned something about tech,
Yes.
like using a camera, using social
We know how to
media.
use a camera now.
Yeah.
Turn the laptop on.
Basic stuff. It's hard, but even downloading stuff because potentially that could have been a blocker. What's going? Well, we're just rubbish at that. We just can't do it. You're like, well, okay. We can get to a certain skill set.
We're just not going to edit stuff.
We're just not going to go into anything too.
But like the
crazy.
recording, like you say, like the downloading and the uploading onto YouTube, if they could find a way to make that quicker, because that's hours. But we can do all of that stuff. There's no point delegating that.
Yeah.
But like it's just the editing and things. But that's an important lesson. Understanding what you're good at, where your skill set is, things you could do with improving on, and things that it's
and it's about being really honest with yourself, self-aware, and again, it's reflective practice. Like, where are you currently doing really well in?
Yeah.
What does that say about your character? Or maybe other people pick that up on you.
Yeah.
Now I've got some clients that are quite honest, and they'll be, "Oh, James, that's something you're really good at. Is that?" And that's great. And no one says I'm really bad at anything because I'm great at everything.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, brilliant.
Me too.
Just don't get any feedback.
Well, if negative feedback to me is just haters.
Yeah, just like it's their issue. It's your issue, mate.
It's your issue.
No.
Right.
But yeah, I suppose that links me to another one of my points. Actually, is humility.
Yes.
Humility and taking yourself less seriously.
Yeah.
And especially when I'm reflecting on the podcast or thinking about weaknesses, it's like I've got weaknesses, plenty of flaws, even there's things I'm trying to get good at. I'm not that good at it.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get better. And just having that little bit of humility and not taking myself so seriously, ironically, allows me to get better.
Yeah.
Because I'm not putting so much pressure on myself and going, you're not at the level. Because then you stop doing those things rather than like every podcast. We'll listen to this podcast in 2 years' time and go, that was a bit shoddy.
Yeah.
And that's good. It should be like that.
Yeah.
But if you don't make that first step to at least admitting the first time you do anything, you're going to be crap.
Yeah.
You have to do that. And then the next time you do it, you'll be crap, but just a little bit less crap. And you just keep going and going and going. And if it's really important to you, and probably another one of my reflections is finding things that you really care about.
I was just going to say
we
that.
really care
Yeah,
about this.
yeah.
It's really important to us.
And we enjoy it.
Host of reasons we enjoy it. Exactly. Once you've got that, then you're okay with the discomfort it takes to get there.
Yeah.
It could be discomfort of having to do it on a different day, having to do it on a Saturday when my daughter's here, whatever. Like, there's just little things we've got to figure out, but we'll figure it out and work it around life because we both care about this. It means a lot to us. So whatever gets thrown at us, we'll be able to move forward.
And still get it done.
Because it's that important. People who maybe struggle with their exercise, one thing you've got to go is, how much does this mean to you?
Yeah.
If you're not being... And I've got plenty of things like social media. I'm not that consistent with it because I don't care that much about it. It's not that meaningful.
Yeah.
It's okay. I can see the value of it and you can leverage it. But I'm probably never going to be someone who's going to do it every single day because it's just... I've got too many other priorities.
Yeah.
And it's at a certain priority level where if those other things are done, it will happen. If I haven't, I'm okay with not. And that's okay. I've got other skill sets and my business is cool. Is that aware? Otherwise, if I'm resting all the time and that, I haven't done that. Do you care that much about it, James? If I'm honest, no, not really. Not. It's not a top end care.
Well, I had to do it with my that with my golf.
Yeah.
Because it got to the point where, first I'm awful at it, but the second thing is, so I got caught in this middle ground where it's like, well, I don't just want to give up, and then it was, but I don't enjoy it, and I don't really have time for it, and so I was getting stressed out. If I was going to go down the range or have a lesson during the week, I was getting stressed out because I didn't really have time, and it was just eating away from more things that I might really enjoy doing. I do my yoga now on a Friday at 6. Never an issue.
Yeah.
Never a problem. Never find it a thing to like struggle with and think, I wish I could just stay at home. With the golf, I was thinking I wish I could just stay at home because it was evening. But yoga, I never think like that.
Yeah.
And it just shows, doesn't it? And I haven't really missed the golf. So it shows that by understanding, reflecting on that, shows you where your values and the things you want to do and enjoy doing and want to continue doing are.
Yeah.
But you have to reflect on that to understand that.
You do, and I think another part of being able to be consistent, which has been good for us, and this is a key for everyone, is some sort of accountability.
Yeah.
It's made it a lot easier for us to generally do it at the same time each week, generally, and accountable to each other.
Yeah.
If we were doing this separately, I wouldn't have been as consistent.
No, I wouldn't.
You know, I would have done it when it fitted in again. I would have tried to do it, but I probably would have missed more podcasts.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be at 100 now if I wasn't doing it with you. So if people are struggling for training, they always do better if they're meeting a training partner at the gym or someone. I've got clients who go out for runs or whatever. They meet up with somebody else, so they're going to get that run done. If there's something that you do care about, but you still want to make that new behaviour or habit sustainable, it's accountability. Personal trainers provide accountability to people. It's one that people are probably sick of hearing, but it's actually a really important
it's also
one.
It's underestimated. People think, I sometimes see coaches and trainers being like, oh, you're not there to get them accountable. Actually, a big part of it is, you know, if you got I'm the same as you, by the way. If I hadn't had you to be doing it with, there's no way I'd have done as many. There's too many things that I could have done with the studio or studying or training or those busy days where you just think, actually not today, and then not today becomes not tomorrow, and then it becomes next week, and then it becomes, you start a diet or whatever, same stuff.
It's actually the same.
But with that accountability to each other, has kept us as consistent as we are, and then we go with the curveballs, such as this week, or Cal's podcast got shifted a couple of days. You know, we go with the curveballs, and I think that's really important. What was I talking about before that? You were talking about accountability. Oh, personal trainers, personal trainers and coaches. That is a part of your job, you know, and that's a part of when I've had coaching. I'll give you an example. Studying. When I've been on a course and its structure gives you accountability. I'm getting back up with Integra in a couple of weeks with Michael, and have I been as consistent with my study in mechanics as I was when I was regularly tutoring? No. So what am I doing about? And some of that's busy, not because I don't enjoy that, because I do, but it's just busy. Can I create time? Yes. But go and see Michael a few more times, bang, countable again, things to do in between, it gets me going again. And to get the most value out of going up there, I need to do the work in between. I'm paying for something. We've spoken about the value of paying for something. And that's what a client's doing with you. One of the things they're investing in is a time, a space, an appointment, accountability. Charging late will hopefully you charge them if they cancel late, and so that all of that breeds consistency for a long period. And I don't think that should be underestimated. I think sometimes it's just like palmed away, but I think it's a good point.
I think and you should sort of time there. I think another thing that I've done since we've been running the podcast is to make time to think and learn more because of the podcast, and to be a little bit more creative with the podcast, just in how I'm thinking about subjects. And that takes some deep work. So I've had to not just make time for the podcast, make time for something outside of that to learn and to grow outside of that activity. So when you're trying to move any area in line with your life forward, you do have to think, okay, well, I want to spend time in that, but you might need to spend time outside of that to learn new skills to help you with that. Let's say, I'm going to talk about relationships again. Let's say someone wants to develop their relationship. Great, spending time with that person's cool. There are so many amazing podcasts on relationships now. So much good stuff and so much good resources on learning psychology around relationships. Go away, spend time on your own. And then, of course, you can spend some time with your partner as well. But you need to have that time on your own to learn about X subject. It could be health. Great, do some stuff in the gym, but then go away and learn about it. And for me, to be more creative, to think clearly, to learn, to absorb information, if I had to go, right, what is the most important thing? Am I going to make time for it? If I'm not, then I'm not going to be able to be as knowledgeable to be the person I want to be in the podcast. Being really clear on that, and that makes me make time.
I'll tell you the other thing it helps with when you're discussing something through. I did this with, and I'm sure it'll be the same for you on the seminars that we did back in the day as well, is when you've learned something, then explaining it to someone is a great way of solidifying it in your mind, but also understanding that maybe you need to find another way to explain it. I find it when I'm tutoring and mentoring people, I'm sure you do as well. I'll have some eureka moments, let's use mechanics as my thing, where I understand something and I can explain it to someone, but all of a sudden someone doesn't quite get it and I have to find another way to explain it or another analogy, and all of a sudden I see it a bit differently in my mind as well. So it helps me gain a deeper understanding of what I'm learning because you're using it, you're explaining it. Because there's nothing worse than learning something and then never using it, because it just goes. If you're not using it on a regular basis, having to speak to people, like mechanics with general population clients, you're not explaining it to them that often. I mean, I'll just think about it as I'm going, as I'm designing an exercise. But again, going back up to say Michael in a few weeks gives me an opportunity to actually go back over it again. And on the podcast with the few mechanics episodes we've done, or if I'm teaching someone, and I'm guessing that's the same for you as well. If you've learned something and you've really absorbed it, and then you get an opportunity to explain it, it just gets it deeper and deeper, doesn't it, of an understanding?
Yeah, I think another lesson as you're talking there, it makes me think about the importance of going over things again and again and again.
Yeah.
Not just, people might watch a documentary or hear one thing or learn one thing, do one course and think, sorted now.
Done.
You need to constantly, I am constantly reminding myself of things. It could be with nutrition, it could be even with exercise, psychology. If I've learned it, I want to go, every time I go over it again, I get a little bit better at communicating it. I get a little bit more knowledgeable. I understand it a little bit more. So any area of your life you want to grow and develop in, don't just think I've read that book once. Now, some books I've read 3, 4. I mean, I'm not giving a fuck. I've probably read it about 10 times. But it's my favourite book. But I love Mark Manson, as anyone listening probably knows. But it's just because I want to really absorb that information and really learn it.
Yeah.
So again, I think you have to be clear on where you want to go in your life, the direction that you want to go in. Because if you're not, then you're just going to be overwhelmed with all the resources that are there.
Yeah.
Like what's most important to you? What in your life right now isn't quite firing all cylinders? What in your life right now are you being a bit complacent with? And then go, right, I might need to revamp some energy into it. Do that by just going away and learning some stuff.
Yeah.
Or spending some time in that area. And because people are waiting, waiting for motivation. No. Just, if your health isn't very good, just get into the gym. And then once you're in the gym for a few weeks, a few months, I'm not trying to make it sound over. It's simple but still difficult to do. But the simplicity of it is the more you do something, the more motivated you become. And if I'm thinking I'm getting a bit flat with something or I'm not quite there with it, just go and put some energy into it, and straight away that recharges me.
Yeah, because I've had a busy start to the year prior to this week anyway, and I haven't been studying as much as I would normally be, which is why I've bought the course that we were talking about. You recommended a course, a psychology course that I've bought, and so I've started. Bought my nice book, didn't I?
Yeah.
Bought myself a nice little notebook because it's nice and fresh, that gets you going, and booked a couple of sessions up at Integra. Because bang, straight back in them.
Yeah.
If you think, I'm just struggling a little bit here. I wasn't struggling, I was just struggling to find the time is what I was struggling to do. So it's like, right, bang, make time. Get into something structured. And neither of the things I'm doing are particularly expensive this time round. I mean, the psychology course that you recommended, online, 250 quid.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of education, it's not a massive cost, but it gives me some structure. And going up to see Michael to do a couple of these lab times isn't overly expensive. And it just gets the ball rolling again. Again, accountability, but also gets the juices flowing. That structured course or being around other people just gives you.
It makes you make time.
It does.
Like we have a certain amount of time a day, and you put into that, your time will get filled. Everyone's busy, so straight away when you commit to something, you have to make the time for it. It's a bit like, again, the public speaking stuff I've been doing. Like, I've booked onto it because it forces me to get up on a Tuesday evening when it's dark and it's cold. I don't want to get out of my flat.
No.
It's like that, that's warm. I want to just watch a bit Peaky Blinders again for the third time. But actually, having booked in, having to be there, people maybe relying on you to be there, and I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
A bit like this. So finding motivation to stick to something for 12 months can be hard. So you've got to find little tricks and ways of doing it. Also, another thing that's really important is try and make it fun if you can.
Yeah.
Like we actually legitimately enjoy this, meet up each week, and it's good fun.
Yeah.
And the whole experience is enjoyable. So try and find things, try and make things enjoyable if you can. Whether it's how you exercise or things you do in life, where you can create the best environment possible.
If this wasn't enjoyable, we wouldn't have done 100.
No,
there's no way. And if you really dislike the exercise you're doing, you probably won't stay consistent with it. And that's why I think it's important never to get sort of too bolted down in it has to be this or it has to be that, unless you have a specific goal. For instance, if you're going to run a marathon, you got to run. So it sounds stupid, but it's true. But if you're just generally training to keep fit and healthy, try different things. Try some yoga, try some strength training, try some cardio, try some high rocks, Try different things and see what you enjoy. Because if you find something you enjoy, you'll continue to do it. So with Becky, she loves yoga.
Yeah.
So go and do that 2 or 3 times a week. If that's your thing and you enjoy it and you look forward to it and you're going to be consistent with it, go and do that. Do you know what I mean? But you have to work around to find that.
Yeah.
There's just a thought that came into mind that I forgot to write down, so I'm going to say it again before it disappears again. Was actually, when we decided to do the podcast, was actually just getting on and doing it. Because I think sometimes people are put off by what other people will think. and they'll start to think, oh, what are these guys doing, starting a podcast, or they think someone will listen, or it's going to be a bit shit, or whatever. If you start to think like that, most people don't even think about it, because most people are going around doing their own business.
Yeah.
So you get caught up thinking what other people are thinking, even though you have no idea what they're thinking. But if you like the idea of just doing a podcast, just start it. I mean, we just literally did that, didn't it? It was just start it, crack on, and see what happens. And that's all it was. But it's so easy to, again, with the podcast, it's easy to just put it off and think, oh, we'll do it next year, or we'll do it the following year, or something's come up, let's not start it, or you're a bit worried what people might think if you start putting it out there. And actually, there's a real saying that I like, and I always forget what it is. But it goes along the line of it's never too late.
That much then, mate.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. What is it? I don't know. I live by it.
I can't remember what it is though.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
It's along the lines of basically it's never too late to start, but it's always too late to not start.
Yeah.
And there is a better one than that. But you know what I mean? It's never too late to do something, but what are you putting it off for?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So the fact that we just got on and got it done and started it and then been consistent, but you have to start.
Yeah. I mean, the human brain is very clever, and it doesn't really like change.
No.
It will create so many narratives to convince you that now isn't the time to start X, Y, and Z. It could be a podcast, it could be a new health regime, it could be a new job, it could be whatever. It's so convincing. So just to say to yourself, I'm just going to do it, because it's never a good time.
Well, that's the thing.
There might be some times that are slightly worse than others, but ultimately, now I didn't start this podcast at a particularly good time of my life, if I'm honest. Yeah. But I was like, now just take it as an opportunity. So I think that's a really good point that you bring up there. And another side of what you're saying there is, what can stop us is fear, and fear of discomfort, fear of difficult emotions, fear of other people's opinions and predictions, which is only in our own head. All these narratives that go round and round and round that 99% are unhelpful, maybe even untrue. So it's really important for some people to reflect on, because often there's always something in a lot of people's lives they do want to change. It could be something really small, it could be something bigger, and they're not doing it for a certain reason. And you've got to really unpeel the layers and what's really stopping you. And when I ask people, they give me an initial narrative. Oh, I can't do this because of X, Y, and Z. It's not fact. They've given me some spiel. And if I say something now, and I catch myself and go, "Hang on, James, you're just saying that. It's not you're saying you haven't got time. You have. You just prioritise other things, or you're saying you couldn't do that. Well, you could if you really, really wanted to.
Yeah.
And it's just being really honest with myself about what's holding me back, and it's your own mind often. So I think that's a really good point.
And I think this could be of anything. Well, I've loved some of my clients in recent years. They've done things like started to learn a language, been meaning to do it, just go and do it. Or wanted to do an art class, or wanted to create an art club. We had an inquiry the other day from a lady that was 93.
Wow.
Yeah. And she, I got talking to her on the phone. And you know, a 93-year-old, because she phoned in and took the message. Yeah, she ain't emailing. No. She took the message, so I got the message and gave her a call back. And as I called back, I was like, this isn't a 10-minute call.
No.
Because it's just that generation. Yeah, cool. And bless her, 93, plays table tennis every week. She has a singing club that she set up, and people come to her house. And do you know, I was just listening to her. She was inspiring.
Wow.
And now she wants to come to the PT studio.
Wow.
Brilliant, superb. Yeah. But it just got me thinking about someone at that age, and she didn't start until, she said 20 years ago, with the table tennis and the singing club. So you're talking to someone that got into their 70s and was like, bang, I want to do this, I want to do this. Or got to the 90s and said, I want to do some PT.
Yeah.
That's inspiring. I think that's brilliant.
Very inspiring. It shows you it's never too late.
It's never too late.
And she's the best example of that.
Brilliant.
I mean, 92, trying to take on something new. That keeps you alive.
Yeah.
That mindset, that growth mindset. I mean, that's why she's still going.
Inspiring.
92 is just brilliant, and so many good points to that. So I want to bring it back to what you're talking about there about earlier on about people maybe not changing and not doing something. It's easy to feel stuck, isn't it? And be stuck. And you've mentioned today as well about just changing things up and mixing things up a little bit. If you haven't got a specific goal, it's good to have some variety. I say to clients sometimes, let's have an experiment. Think of it as an experiment. Just try something different. It could be with your nutrition. They're like, oh, we have a certain way of eating. We all do, don't we? We have certain foods that we like. We have certain routines with eating. And we struggle to change it up. Like, why not just have a couple of weeks where we do something a little bit different? Just a couple of weeks, experiment, see how you feel. Now, I'm not drinking at the moment, for a few reasons, but it'd be an interesting experiment to go 2 months of no alcohol, and just to see how I feel. I don't think I've been that length of time for quite a while. So just experiment.
Absolutely.
Experiment. It's nothing. I'm not going to be teetotal for the rest of my life. People can get to see that, but actually it's been an interesting experiment just so I can learn more about myself. It could be food. It could be anything in life. Just if you go into something with an open mindset and go, you know what, I haven't got any expectations of this. I'm just going to go into it and see what happens. It's a great place to be, and it's sort of then you're not getting held back.
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh, if I go and do that, get to this PT studio, or everyone's judging me and everyone's worried that I'm really old and I shouldn't be there. No, go into it with an open mind. It's a new challenge, a new experience. And they're easy words for me to say. I know in real life that could be hard with something that's out of our comfort zone, but being aware of what's holding you back mentally.
Yeah, that's one of my bugbears. Is a slightly different conversation where people in the gym judging other people in the gym, because actually I think the most inspiring people in the gym for me are the bravery that it takes to walk through the gym doors in the first place. I've got a client I was talking to the other day about this, and she's been training me for 12 years, and she was very overweight when she first started, never trained, and we were just reflecting, funnily enough, not on purpose, the conversation just went that way, and she was talking about how good I am, and I was like, well,
amazing,
I know that. Let's tell me something I don't know.
Keep talking.
Keep it going. But let's discuss something new. You know.
Keep going.
But I was talking about the bravery it must have taken for her to walk through the doors, and she said how nervous she was. She's going to meet. I was only 20 or 21 at the time. Yeah, God, I'm getting old, mate.
A while ago, wasn't it?
Oh my God. Should we reflect on that for a bit?
Yeah.
And she's been training with me ever since. And I was just talking about the bravery walking in. She said how nervous she was. And I think as people who are so used to the gym and so used to that environment, take it for granted for someone to want to walk through the door of somewhere where they perceive a lot of people are in really good shape. Obviously, most gyms, it's not that. It's just people trying to stay fit and healthy in most gyms. So it's not like you walk in and it's like an Arnie fest.
Yeah.
But that's what people's perception is if they've never been to the gym. And I can understand why, especially if you look at the old Graham a couple of times.
Yeah.
But the bravery it took for her to walk through those doors, and it was one of the best decisions she ever made in terms of starting her fitness journey, because of how she feels now, and she lost loads of weight and she's super strong, and her life and the things she can do now. But the bravery it took for her to walk through those doors, I think sometimes in an industry that's something we don't, first of all, we don't make it easy enough for people to walk through those doors, and second of all, we don't understand the level of accomplishment that is for some people. Like imagine you're like scared of heights or something like that, and you literally then do some sort of bungee jump. For someone who is overweight, has really low self-confidence on the way they look and the way their health is, to walk through the door is that level. Yeah. Do you know it is? So I think we should make more of that end of the scale rather than Dave got from 8% to 5% body fat.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, mate. I totally agree.
That's not a reflection on the podcast, that's just our industry.
No. For me, another sort of really important reflection from 100 podcasts is the value of quality conversations.
Yeah.
Whether it's the conversations that we have each week now, we get to talk about subjects every single week, like how that is for me to figure stuff out and to listen to your perspective and listen to you talk about things. I have to listen to you because on the podcast I can't just talk the whole time, so I'm forced to listen.
Yeah, but I'm where the knowledge comes from.
Oh God, I've got this damn chatting shit again.
Just absolutely nailing that at the point.
Nod my head.
Knocks out of the park. Knocks out of the park.
But also, not just listen to you rabbit on. Actually, the interviews that we've had, interviews, and you alluded to this earlier, the conversations that we've had, really valuable to sit someone down and just like in real life. How often do you get to do that? So I've got a lot out of that, the conversations that we have and with other people. And that's also been the kind of path that my career's been going on, like a lot more around counselling and psychology. I still train people as well, but I really, really value deep quality conversations. It's just, it's you feel like you've had a real experience rather than just surface level. I suppose that's where in the industry, in personal training, I've struggled a little bit at times because it felt to me at times a bit surface level. And now I've got a little bit deeper with my clients and with all my relationships, I feel so much better if I'm honest. And because I've done the work on myself, I'm able to have those conversations and be in the right state to entertain these perspectives and have these more challenging conversations at times as well. So I've got a lot of value from that.
Yeah, no, completely so have I. Just learning from we've had some great people on the podcast, and we're very appreciative of anyone that's ever come on the podcast as well. We've had some really good quality conversations. Lots of people have been incredibly open as well, in certain cases vulnerable as well, in the conversations we've had, which has been amazing. The other thing, on a slightly different tangent, we were talking about this with regards to bigger podcasters, if there are any bigger podcasters than us. I don't know.
A few in between.
But this was actually something that sparked my thought on us doing this podcast when we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago. The responsibility of a podcaster in terms of the information that you put out and the guests you have on. And it's an interesting dynamic, isn't it, between not shutting any ideas down, being open-minded, but there's a few things going on at the moment with maybe disinformation or misinformation or whatever it's called at the moment. And it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because we always want to make sure that the information we're putting out is good quality information, and it's to the best of our knowledge at this time, which is something you always say, because I'm sure we'll look back in 5 years and be like, well, that's changed. But for this moment, we're putting things out, be it mechanics, be it psychology, be it nutrition, be it sleep, whatever we've discussed in the last 100 episodes, it's to the best of our knowledge at the time, and it's come from a place of we've studied, we've put time and effort into really trying to understand this. And I think that's important responsibility as a podcaster. Not that we have a huge audience, but we always want to try and give them the best information that we possibly can, whilst being open-minded to new ideas. Because it's not, I don't want this to sound like you shut down ideas that are new, but maybe there are some bad ideas out there. And maybe some stuff that isn't quite based in fact. And I think we do need to be aware of that as well. And it's something I am mindful of once we're huge. I think there's a little one. It is something that I do sort of think about, actually, because I've seen it with other podcast hosts, the bigger ones, that sometimes they've had people on.
I think not just as podcasters, I think as a parent, as a leader, as in any role in life, often you've got some responsibility.
Yeah. And
yes, as a podcaster, you've got a big audience, or even a few, you've got responsibility to your audience. As a coach, you've got responsibility to your clients. Lots of people have a lot of responsibilities, and to look at yourself and go, you know what, actually, I've been really dogmatic here, I've been really fixed-minded, I'm not able to even listen to somebody else, entertain their perspective and be open-minded. That's going to limit your ability to be able to develop depth and connection, and those relationships will all suffer. So that's a real key point I want to throw out there. And on the podcast theme, yes, it's something that I have reflected a lot on as well, is every bit of information I give out is to the best of my ability now, but I'm still learning this stuff all the time, and I'm humble enough to say that. I'm learning a lot, I'm trying to grow, as you know, I put a lot of hours and time into learning, but I'm still I'm still on this journey, and it's never ending. I'm never going to be in this podcast saying, it is this, it is that, that's it, that's that tied up. It doesn't work like that, and unfortunately, somehow we hear these very scientific people who have doctorates and PhDs talking very dogmatically about complex problems in a very reductionist way, and that really frustrates me. I don't know, I don't have an amazing knowledge of anything. I've got certain areas that I'm more knowledgeable at than others, and I work bloody hard to increase my knowledge there, but it's you're always scraping the surface, and the more you learn, the more you realise you don't know. So yeah, it's something. Now I'm a podcaster, and listen to people on other podcasts, it's quite upsetting and frustrating and triggering when you can hear them just being so fixed and dogmatic, passing on what is unhelpful advice. And really, I think what's a philosophy and a value to both of us is to learn as much as we can, put as good quality information as we can, but also realise that we're going to make mistakes and say stuff that we'll reflect on and go, didn't quite get that right, and actually, next time I say that, or now I've learned a little bit more, I can expand on that. And so that's why these podcasts will always be refined and always be growing. It won't just be 100, we've talked about everything now. Even stuff we've already talked about in the last 100, we'll be able to talk about in more detail and in better ways as the future goes on. It's like what I said earlier. If you're passionate, relearn that thing. That what there is to learn about that subject is never ending. If you care enough about it, keep going, and you're going to achieve something great. A
really good friend of mine recently read Chimp Paradox. And
we did that, didn't we? Mentoring.
We did that when we were mentoring.
Done that.
Completed it, actually.
That, yeah.
Don't ever complete anything except we do complete stuff.
I'll see in Peters,
So he found the book very, very helpful, and so he's read it another couple of times because he just found it really useful. And when you find something like that, you do reread it, a bit like you with Mark Manson. It's the whole point, isn't it? You're just finding it so useful and so many takeaways for you in the way you think that you can't almost read it too much, because you're always going to pick up something new, or you might even read the same thing that you've already thought about, but think about it in a different way, because you've changed as a person since the last time you read the book. And I think sometimes people don't realise that. After this week, I'm going to read "Obstacle Is the Way" again.
Yeah.
And I said that like I'm not. I actually am.
Yeah.
Because I thought of some of the things within that this week that helped me. Now I want to reread it, because I'm a different person to 2 years ago. I've dealt with different things. I've got a different mentality. So I want to reread it and see what lessons I can learn with who I am now versus who I was then.
Yeah.
That's why a book can be different. That's why a film can be different when you watch it 2-3 times.
Yeah, or any experience.
Yes,
You're
any
like,
experience.
I won't do that again. You're like, well, you're a different person now. Maybe next time you experience it will be totally
Ready for me
different.
to bastardise a quote?
Go for it, mate.
It wouldn't be that.
Yeah.
I've got to do it.
You've got to,
it's
it's your way now, isn't it? Don't get any quotes right. So yeah.
Oh yeah, no. Paul does this better than I do. It's all about the man in the river, and then it's the same man never stands in the same river, because it's never the same man twice. It's never the same river twice. And again, that's not the complete quote, but we get the point.
Yeah.
You're forever changing, and so is the river forever changing.
Yeah.
So if we think about the river in this context being a book, let's say, or the way that you're changing, even the way you perceive things, the way you draw on things. So that's why things change. That's why you can read a book and all of a sudden you pick out different things, or you just take things and think them in a different way.
I want to make another really important point on this, is that the other way this works as well is that when you've had an experience with another person and you're like, that wasn't a good experience, 2 years later they might have grown and changed.
Yeah.
So it's remembering that, giving people the opportunity to go, you know what, okay, last time I saw them, this didn't work out too well, we had a different conversation or whatever, in any different, we've all got things in our life where this has happened. You meet them again, it's quite useful to try and be open-minded, because maybe they have changed and you don't know if they've grown and developed. And also people might met someone who met James in his 20s,
which I did.
And even before I met you, like in my early 20s, very different person. So if someone was to meet me now and they're still judging James from the person in his 20s, which maybe some people might do, maybe some ex-girlfriends or something, might be James is this and that. I'm like, well, I was at 21, but I'm a little bit older now, and I've learnt a lot and I've grown a lot. So, but their memory of me would be this memory from 20 years ago. No, I'm a different person, and maybe we've also got to apply that to how we think as well. It could be, let's say something's triggered you online or whatever. Okay, sometimes I'm a fan of maybe unfollowing and distancing yourself, but sometimes I'll just go and I'll dip my toe back in and just go, let's hear what they're saying now. Sometimes I'm like,
still shit.
Or sometimes I'm like, actually, the place that I was at that time, that information was triggering me.
Yeah.
And now I've come back because I'm in a better place. I'm not triggered by the information anymore. I can see it through a different lens. So maybe they've changed and maybe I've changed. And that whole experience, whether it's a post, whether it's a book, whether it's a whatever, another person, is very different. There's the whole dynamic. And with people, you've got this kind of interpersonal climate that we've talked about before. But that is very different depending on where those two people are at that moment in time. Those two people could have met each other 3 years ago and it not worked at all, and now 3 years down the line it works really well because they're both in that right place. The classic example is when people develop romantic relationships. What happens because those people are in the right place at the right time. If they're not, then it's not going to work.
That made me think about, and we spoke about this, but I'm sure it wasn't on the podcast, talking about the opportunity to sort of recreate yourself, not in a way where you're starting from scratch each time, but every time maybe you get into a new relationship, be it romantic or be it a friendship or be it the way we started the podcast, it's an opportunity to take what you've learned, and then the next time you meet someone, you're almost, as long as you reflect the things you're good at and the things you're bad at, or the things you've done well or haven't done as well, and then you try to make those changes, you're effectively improving on yourself next time you meet someone. And as you say, that person comes to meet you at a blank canvas of where you are now, whereas people previously might struggle to see that change because they knew what you were like previously. And it's one of the big things about universities. When I speak to some of my clients that are going to university or some of their parents, it's an opportunity, especially if you haven't enjoyed school that much, it's an opportunity to not start again, but recreate yourself from all the lessons you've learned from what didn't go so well at school or outside, and you get an opportunity to go and try something new, be someone slightly different, not losing who you are authentically, but maybe just trying a different way. We spoke last week, didn't we? If you go into every relationship with exactly the same perspective on everything, well, guess what? You're going to find exactly the same results each time, aren't you? Yeah. But maybe just going into a new relationship with a different perspective can really open up new things. So I think that's a really good point as well, just to buffer on to the end of that.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily, that's just more of a life lesson.
Yeah,
over the last few years.
I think when you do a podcast, I think you're forced to reflect a lot.
Yeah.
And if we're talking a lot about life, there's a life coaching element to this podcast. So we have to reflect on life because we're talking about life, aren't we? Whether it's relationships, whether it's career, whether it's health, that's people's lives. So it's good to think about a bit more deeply, and you can through good quality.
We do get deep, don't we, mate? Sometimes we do.
We like to. I think on this same sort of wavelength as well is really trying to be open-minded to different perspectives as well and different points of view. Even if I disagree with it, I try my best to always remind myself of the Aristotle quote that I do love, which I will get right.
You'll get that right.
I'm a writer quotes. Otherwise I don't say them.
I do.
It's the mark of an educated mind to entertain a thought and not have to accept it.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of stuff out there that I disagree with, but I at least open my mind to and think, where is that coming from? Because often it's not all wrong.
Yeah.
Like, yes, that might be really quite emotive to me and triggering me because someone's chatting about something I disagree with nutrition, but actually there is some science and some truth to what they're saying as well, but they've just twisted the science or worked it around their biases, their beliefs and their agenda, often to sell something. So I can see through that, but I can see how they got to that answer as well because I'm open to it. And what I find some people do, they just shut off totally to it, which I get. But I try my best to develop the skill of disagree for these reasons, but there's parts of what this person is saying I agree with. Other way around, I really like this person, I agree with stuff that they're saying, but also there's some stuff that I slightly disagree with, have different perspectives. Because you're not going to totally agree with anyone, but I don't think you can 100% disagree with everyone. I think there's a bit in both sides, I feel, anyway. Somewhere along the, if you're willing to go deep enough, I feel like there's some value there somewhere.
Well, we've spoken before, haven't we, with regards to people and trying to separate people and their ideas. And you can have what you perceive to be bad ideas, but actually that person's a good person, or actions or behaviours. And the other way around, someone who perceives that they have like good ideas, but actually when you know them as a person, maybe that's not. We're about to have a guest, I think.
Since my daughter's in the background.
We have you can meet people that maybe aren't good people, and I've had that. I've met people who you'd think maybe some of their actions aren't great, but actually deep down they're really good people. But that can come back to ideas, can't it? It can just be someone who's got good or bad ideas. Sometimes it's difficult to separate. We have to do some cropping of this. And I think that's something. But do you know where some of this is where I've really thought is actually where I've really thought about some stuff from the podcast is some of the conversations we've had, which you've sort of already spoken about, is I've learned from just having conversations, which I know you've mentioned earlier, but I'm just actually almost engaging with now, is that some of the conversations we've had, because there's been such good quality conversations with each other people, the amount that I've learned just from that actually is incredible. It's actually just it's almost reinforced by that last comment.
Yeah.
It's like, because we've spoken about that, because we've just, on certain podcasts, just thrown thoughts around, right? Because some of it we'll plan to a certain extent, but a lot of it will just end up like just ideas being sort of thrown around. And a lot of our stuff, apart from key points you want to put on, especially for some of your stuff, it'll just go into a conversation and I'll have a thought or you'll have a thought. And actually I've learned a lot from actually that, our tangents and some of the conversations we've had.
Spending time to think, isn't it?
Yes.
Like what we're committing time to is spending time to thinking.
Don't just talk, think as well.
Yeah, and it's distracted free time, isn't it? We're very focused in the moment. We're sober.
Yeah.
You know, we're not 5 pints deep. Yeah. So actually, it's great for our own minds and our own personal development is to just think about a subject, not just surface level, and go, hang on, whoa, okay, we'll get to someone with it and go, okay, the knowledge has stopped here. If we now want to talk about this in the podcast, we have to get a little bit deeper with it.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. And maybe thinking about it around, I think that's the psychology and the fact there's just lots of different models. And everyone's got their own different ways of doing it, and that's okay. And I'm not trying to be like anyone else, really. I think that's a key point.
Have you got any other points?
I've got a few more, mate. We won't have time to all of them, but
that's more the reason I'm thinking of the wrap up. Is not because we're done, but because
how do you time wise?
We're about the hour.
About the hour, cool. Because I'll make one last point.
But we can always do with this. We've got a few things.
Part two.
Yeah, because I think what we've learned from podcasts. I know I've got a few more things. I'm thinking what we've learned to be continued.
I'm just going to make one last point.
Let's do it.
Just based on what we've talked about today, which is investing not just time, energy, effort, but also money. And that's a big point of what we've said quite a few times today. I want to highlight that point. often, if you haven't invested some sort of money into it, you're not
Skin
always
in the
gonna be
game.
getting skin in the. And that's on my note. I've written skin in the game. I think that's a key point. I've seen it a lot in coaching when people financially commit. It's like anything in life. You value it if you're financially committed, and then just creating an environment for the work for that part thing, that thing you're trying to learn, or that experience.
Yeah.
Now, if I had a new experience and maybe it was just easy to get a nice new experience. If I had to work for it, you've had to work for your money, and then you choose where you invest your money, and you invest in something meaningful, and you either experience that thing, amazing experience, or maybe you accomplish something and you get a sense of achievement through reaching a goal or being successful in something. That takes time, energy, and effort, and it takes the self-awareness to go, where am I putting that time and energy, not just trying to piss up the wall.
Yeah, absolutely. And because the other thing, if we did enjoy it, at least we tried it for 20 episodes, 30 episodes, 40 episodes. So that's the other thing.
Just
like, try it. And if it
Yep.
doesn't work out, it doesn't work out.
100%.
I definitely reckon we should do a part 2 on this.
Yeah.
A couple of notes before we finish. Next week will just be you, because I've called it a day at 100.
Yeah,
I'm leaving.
Dan sacked it, so I'm on my own. To be honest with you, I'm bloody relieved, to be fair.
That's the one lesson. I don't want to be with Dan every week. But so next week will actually be a Shaibi solo.
Yeah.
Shaibi solo.
Stand by for some deep stuff there.
I won't be breaking the bits up next week. Straight deep work.
Straight all the way me.
I suppose with it being the 100th episode, and actually then the week after we've got a guest, haven't we?
Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you everyone who's been listening.
100%.
Really appreciated, because it gives us a lot of energy and motivation to know that we've got a few listeners, which is great.
It does. And it's on YouTube now, and it's on YouTube fairly regularly. We'll be on YouTube a couple of times a month, won't we? For the moment, we're on YouTube a couple of times a month. Obviously, all these episodes will be in Spotify, etc., Apple Podcast. But yeah, same for me. Just thank you for everyone that's listening. Hope you're enjoying it. We're enjoying it. And
cheers to another 100.
Cheers to another 100. And which we always forget, if anyone's still listening, like, subscribe, share, because we really do appreciate that. But yeah, mate, here's to another 100.
As always.
Shaibi will catch you next week.